Welcome to At World Clips 4 Clips, where we uncover the hidden histories behind today's biggest global stories. Today, we're diving deep into the Israel-Gaza conflict and America's critical role in it. A tale of rapid decisions, displaced lives, and billions in aid that continues to shape events in 2025. Let's get started. On May 14, 1948, Israel declared independence, and just 11 minutes later, the United States became the first nation to recognize it. This quick decision reshaped the Middle East, displaced over 700,000 Palestinians, and ignited decades of conflict. Far from a simple act of support, it was driven by Cold War strategies, oil interests, and alliances that still echo in Gaza streets today. If you've ever wondered why peace talks falter or why the U.S. often vetoes UN resolutions on Israel, we're about to reveal the origins of this enduring conflict. Here's a question for you. Has America's involvement stabilized or escalated the situation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The story begins in the late 19th century with Zionism, a movement for a Jewish homeland born amid widespread anti-Semitism in Europe and Russia. Leaders like Theodor Herzl, driven by centuries of persecution, envisioned a safe haven in Palestine. Then under Ottoman rule and homed over 600,000 Arabs alongside smaller Jewish and Christian communities. Jewish immigration grew, supported by organizations like the Jewish National Fund, which bought land for settlements, sparking early tensions with Arab residents who feared losing their homeland. During World War I, Britain issued the Balfour Declaration in 1917, pledging support for a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. This promise, made without consulting the Arab majority, over 90% of the population, created a rift. Britain also promised Arab leaders independence for their revolt against the Ottomans, setting up conflicting claims to the same land. These contradictions laid the groundwork for decades of strife. After World War II, the Holocaust horrors, 6 million Jews killed, intensified global calls for a Jewish state. Britain, overwhelmed by violence between Jews and Arabs in Palestine, turned the issue over to the United Nations. In November 1947, the UN passed Resolution 181, a partition plan proposing separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international city. The plan gave 56% of the land to the Jewish state, despite Jews owning less than 7% of the land and making up about a third of the population. Jewish leaders accepted it. Arab leaders rejected it, arguing it violated their right to self-determination. Clashes erupted immediately. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion declared Israel's independence. Neighboring Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Iraq, invaded, launching the first Arab-Israeli war, known to Palestinians as the Nakba or catastrophe. Over 700,000 Palestinians fled or were expelled, many to the Gaza Strip, a 140-square-mile coastal enclave. By the 1949 armistice, Israel controlled 78% of Mandate Palestine, far beyond the UN's proposed borders. Egypt occupied Gaza, now overcrowded with refugees, and Jordan took the West Bank, including East Jerusalem. No Palestinian state emerged, leaving a legacy of displacement. Why was the U.S. so quick to recognize Israel? Cold War geopolitics were key. President Harry Truman saw Israel as a bulwark against Soviet influence in the Middle East. The region's oil reserves, critical for Western economies, made strategic alliances vital. Recognizing Israel also appealed to domestic Jewish voters and countered Soviet outreach to Arab states. However, this move alienated Arab nations, fueling anti-American sentiment across the region. In 1956, the Suez Crisis tested America's role. Israel, Britain, and France invaded Egypt to seize the Suez Canal. President Eisenhower intervened, forcing the withdrawal to avoid losing Arab allies and risking Soviet gains. This showed the U.S. balancing support for Israel with broader regional interests. By the 1960s, U.S. military and economic aid to Israel grew, solidifying a deep alliance. The 1967 Six-Day War marked a seismic shift. Fearing attack, Israel launched preemptive strikes, crushing Egypt, Jordan, and Syria in 6 days. Israel captured the Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, Sinai Peninsula, and Golan Heights. Gaza came under Israeli military occupation, with settlements built and borders tightly controlled. Over 300,000 more Palestinians became refugees, many fleeing to Jordan and Lebanon. The UN Security Council's Resolution 242 called for Israel's withdrawal from occupied territories in exchange for peace, but progress stalled amid competing claims. The 1973 Yom Kippur War deepened U.S. involvement. Egypt and Syria launched a surprise attack to reclaim lost territories. Israel repelled them, aided by a massive U.S. airlift weapons, signaling a stronger alliance. The war exposed Israel's vulnerabilities and led to the 1979 Camp David Accords, brokered by President Jimmy Carter. Egypt regained Sinai in exchange for peace with Israel, but the Palestinian question remained unresolved, with Gaza and the West Bank still under occupation. In the 1980s, the First Intifada, 1987 to 1993, erupted a Palestinian uprising against occupation in Gaza and the West Bank. Images of stone-throwing youths facing Israeli troops drew global attention. During this period, Hamas formed in Gaza, blending Palestinian nationalism with Islamist ideology, challenging the secular PLO. The 1993 Oslo Accords, mediated by the U.S., raised hopes by creating the Palestinian Authority to govern parts of Gaza and the West Bank. But expanding Israeli settlements and checkpoints eroded trust, undermining the peace process. The Second Intifada, 2000-2005, was more violent, with suicide bombings and Israeli military operations devastating both sides. In 2005, Israel withdrew settlers and troops from Gaza, but maintained control over its borders, airspace, and coast. After Hamas won the 2006 Palestinian elections and seized Gaza in 2007, Israel imposed a blockade, still in place in 2025, restricting goods and movement. Critics call it an open-air prison. Periodic wars followed, 2008 to 2009, 2012, 2014, with rocket fire from Gaza met by Israeli airstrikes and ground operations, killing thousands, mostly Palestinians. Israel's conflicts extended beyond Palestine. In 1982, Israel invaded Lebanon to expel the PLO, leading to years of occupation and the rise of Hezbollah, an Iran-backed Shia militia. The 2006 Lebanon war pitted Israel against Hezbollah, with U.S.-supplied weapons playing a key role. In Syria, disputes over the Golan Heights, occupied since 1967, persisted. The October 7, 2023 Hamas attack, killing 1,200 Israelis, triggered a massive Israeli response, killing over 40,000 in Gaza by 2024. Escalation spread to Lebanon with Hezbollah and Yemen with the Houthis, complicating the regional picture. As of 2025, a January ceasefire in Gaza holds shakily, but the conflict's roots, 1948's displacement and 1967's occupation, persist. The U.S. provides Israel with $3.8 billion in annual military aid, though growing domestic debates, especially among younger Americans, question the support. Palestinians face a humanitarian crisis in Gaza, with 2 million people squeezed under blockade. Israelis grapple with security fears from rocket attacks and regional threats. Addressing land rights, refugee returns, Jerusalem status, and security for both sides is essential for peace. While the UN calls for ending the occupation, U.S. vetoes often block action, though a shift toward balanced mediation could open new paths. Grassroots efforts, Israeli peace activists and Palestinian civil society, push for dialogue despite deep distrust. What's your take? Is the U.S. a neutral broker, a biased ally, or something else? Hit that like button if you found this deep dive eye-opening. Subscribe to World Clips, 4 clips for more stories that untangle the world's toughest issues. Let's keep the conversation going. Share your thoughts in the comments, and together, let's imagine a future where peace isn't just a dream but a reality.